One thing that the Chicago Bulls president said at the season-ending press conference was that changes were coming, and this offseason has brought changes. How well have those changes worked out for the Chicago Bulls? Me and Pat are going to discuss them on today's episode as we're going to grade the Bulls offseason thus far. All that and more on today's Locked On Bulls.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, a member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. That's Pat the Designer, host and creator of the Windy City Breeze and host of the Chicago Bears podcast over at ESPN 1000. I'm Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls Central and Chicago Bears Central YouTube pages and podcasts. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Pat, that time has come, man. Seems like the Bulls have maybe settled in on their offseason moves. It doesn't seem like anything's coming. We've heard some rumors, things like that, but nothing really, it's too strong. But it seems like the Bulls offseason may be done. So what a better time than not to grade the Bulls offseason. Let's start off with the first deal that kicked all this off. That was a trade of Alex Caruso that sent him to the OKC Thunder for Josh Giddey. Reportedly, the Bulls could have gotten multiple first-round picks back had they moved him at the trade deadline. At that time, some rumors that the ownership mandated pushing for the playoffs. Casey Johnson has come out and kind of said that he hasn't heard anything like that. And a lot of Bulls fans also look at this deal by more so what they did not get, and that's any draft capital back. But for the deal itself, Josh Giddey, Alex Caruso straight up. How do you feel about the deal, Pat?
Listen, I think it's a C+ deal right now, right? Because it's a wait and see approach. Now, can the grades go up? Sure, but at the end of the day, the getting back of a 9-year younger player in Josh Giddey is not a bad thing. Is it the best case scenario for you for what you thought you were going to be moving on from Alex Caruso for? No, it's just not. And so, I think that while I think that it can work out, while you feel like it can have some really good things, and that Josh Giddey with the ball in his hand can be a player who can make this a B to an A level trade, I don't think it's there right now, because you thought that you were going to have an ability to get back multiple first round picks. You thought you were going to have an ability to get back maybe a player and some possible picks. You thought that Alex Caruso was your best piece to trade. And while I do think that you got a deal, the best case scenario deal for you, that best case scenario deal is not the best deal that you wanted to get back. And so for me, I give it a C+. It's a solid deal, has a ton of opportunity to have upside on it. But right now, I just don't feel like I can definitively say it's a B+ or it's an A, because Josh Giddey's coming off of a very down moment in his career, in that playoff run where he was basically unusable and had some of his worst shooting numbers that we've seen.
Yeah, and I agree with you, right? And that's the objective view. If you're just looking at the numbers for what they are, Josh Giddey is coming off of a very down season. There's no way around that. Now, here's the thing that I try to look at it with myself, and maybe this is how the Bulls are viewing it as well. Had this trade happened, let's say that the Bulls at this time last year, right, made that same trade with Josh Giddey coming off a 16-8-6 season, had made that trade, I think a lot of more Bulls fans would have been more positive towards that trade. But they still asked about the draft capital, yes. But when you see a player perform the way that Josh Giddey did, I think I confuse the words there for a second. It sounded like maybe it felt a little wrong.
I said if Josh Giddey did.
That's what I thought I said. So I had to fix that.
Gotta watch yourself out here. Drake is a big supporter of Diddy, so is that a Diddy Gid? You know what I mean? Is that what that is? I don't know.
But even looking at Josh Giddey's season, much better post All-Star break than prior to the All-Star break. We know how the playoffs ended for Josh Giddey. And the Bulls, I have rationalized this in my mind as thinking that they looked at Josh Giddey. They looked at where the picks they would have got at reportedly would have only been in this year's draft. They probably looked at what came after number 15 and was just like, Josh Giddey has the higher potential this. And if you're going young, you want to bet off the higher potential because he does have some NBA time behind him while still being young. I can understand why the Bulls went into that. Still, the deal gets a C- for me. It could turn into a much better deal if Josh Giddey comes here and flourishes. You always want to look at trades and deals. You want to look at them initially for what you grade them for, and then maybe 2-3 years down the road. The one thing that is a big concern for me in this move, Pat, is the fact that now the Bulls have to pay Josh Giddey based off one season with the Chicago Bulls. And I don't like putting your team in it, regardless of what Josh Giddey is or not. I don't like being put in a position where you're going to have to make a decision on Josh Giddey one way or another after just 1 year. And who's to say that whatever you see in that 1 year is what you're going to get? Like, you could very well, Josh Giddey can come here and play great in his first year. Then you're going to have to pay him at least the full years on 5 years and lock yourself into that. Or let's say that Josh Giddey does come in and has a bit of a down year. Then what if he does flourish the years prior to that? You just got to make a decision based off a very short amount of data. And the Bulls haven't always made the best decisions when put in that situation, and that's a little bit of a fear there.
I don't think you're wrong in that. I think it would be interesting to see the if he does what we saw him do we feel differently about that? But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. But overall, like I said, C-, and we'll see where that leads us. Let's get into the next deal that happened, and this one is in the draft. Matas Buzelis, very much in a lot of mocks, looked at as a top 5 talent. He falls to the Bulls here at number 11, looked at as a hometown kid. How do you grade this deal, Pat?
I think that this is the best thing that the Chicago Bulls have done. Being able to draft Matas Buzelis to me is you get the hometown kid, you get a young man who legitimately could have gone top 5. I don't think you could have been in a better situation for somebody who's falling into your lap. And I think it was a tough. It would have been tough to say, don't go out and get the Chicago kid. Don't go get the guy who not only Chicago kid, but right, like the guy who many believe that he could have been and was expected to be a top 5 pick. It's not like, I think that there was shock around Matas Buzelis' name when he ended up falling in the draft, and maybe he can use a little bit of that to propel himself forward. And I hope that he does. And for me, I think that this is the best move they made, like I said. And so give me a B+ to A type of move on this one.
It's the only thing that's getting an A for me. I think when you look at the upside, when you look at the position of need, especially now that we've officially moved on from DeMar, which will grade here in a second, that getting Matas Buzelis in here is the one deal this offseason that gets an A for me. I love his upside. He was one of 3 players that I had pegged to come to the Chicago Bulls that I had high on my list. It was him, Tajon Saloon, and Khalil Ware. Those are the 3 players I had at the top 3 of my board, and the Bulls were able to walk away from this draft with him. And I think that's a great value. Now, not a surefire thing. Nobody in this draft especially is, right? That's why this draft was looked at as a weaker draft. But when you look at players, and especially again, I'm talking about this from the framework of you're going younger as a team. If you can walk away from the draft with one of the players with the highest upside in that draft that still have some things that can contribute now, that guy has to get an A for me. Still some questions around Cooper Flagg for sure, right? Like, if that three-point shot does not work out for him, how effective can he be in the other things
around
in the NBA
Matas
game?
Buzelis?
Yeah. Who did I say?
Cooper Flagg.
I said Cooper Flagg. See, I'm already in my.
Yeah, you just went white guy. You just went white guy.
Listen, but Matas Buzelis, how much of his game can translate and will work in the NBA if that 3-point shot doesn't come? And I look at what he does in transition, how intelligent he is as a basketball player, what he brings off ball, how he moves without the ball, all those things to me make it a good pick. And if you can pair it with the Cooper Flagg later down the road,
hey, no,
man,
we'll have that conversation.
We'll have that conversation in a second. But
excited.
One question before we move into the next deal, though, Pat. What do you think Buzelis' role is going to be this first year with the Chicago Bulls?
Find a way to stay on the floor. And so for me, defense. Step your defensive game up. Become a better one-on-one defender. I love the way that he protects the rim. I don't know. I think you said it really well yesterday. I don't know if I'd call him a rim protector, but he does a good job of chasing down shots. He does a good job of making sure that guys aren't getting easy shots, and he makes guys adjust his shots. But be able to add in at 6'10", right? Be able to add in that, just go straight up and make a guy have to adjust on the fly, right? Like, become a phenomenal defender, because that's the one role that we know this Bulls team needs right now. Yeah, we need guys who can get to the bucket. We need guys who can shoot, yes. But you traded away Alex Caruso. There's not a lot of defenders on this team. So use that to your advantage.
That's a fact. That's a fact. And talking about using things to your advantage, of the Bulls use the rest of their assets to their advantage. We're going to continue grading the offseason moves by the Chicago Bulls going forward. But before we get into that, we got to talk to you guys about a message from Gametime. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game and or event. And GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference if you find tickets in the same section for less anywhere else. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. All right, Pat. So moving on from that into the next deal that the Chicago Bulls made. This was signing Jalen Smith with a portion of their mid-level exception for an average salary of $9 million annually. It goes up, so it starts off a little bit lower than that. How do you grade the acquisition of Jalen Smith? You lost Andre Drummond in free agency. How do you grade this deal?
This is a B- move for me right now. Again, you went with an upside, not a bad player, but somebody who, I mean, you got to see more from, right? You want to see the upside be achieved. Like, I think that the theme of this offseason was going out and getting players who, when given time, had potential. And Jalen Smith is one of those guys. There's no doubt about it, right? When he played more minutes on the court, his game picked up. When you saw him playing 24 minutes per game, he was able to score 13 plus points per game, right? He was able to get you almost 8 rebounds a game. Those are good things. Blocking shots also came, he was somebody who being able to block a shot came natural to the more he was in the game. When the minutes went down, you saw that drop off, but still being able to be a guy who could be 9 to 10 points per game off of the bench, 6 rebounds, that's not a bad thing either. So I think this is a good move. It's a solid move. It's not a massive needle mover for me, but for the Chicago Bulls, this was a really good pickup to me. And that's why I give this a B-.
Yeah, I mean, it's a solid deal. And I think when you look at still getting somebody at that center position that is very productive per their minutes, much like Andre Drummond in different ways, right? Not the rebounder that Andre Drummond is, but he's still a really good rebounder per the minute. And then on top of that, he offers an offensive upside that Andre Drummond just didn't really offer as far as actually shot creation, as far as in the three-point line, and more of a mid-range shot there as well. We talk a lot about his three-point shooting, but Jalen Smith brings a lot, and I love the fact that you went out and got a guy who was a former top 10 pick in his draft, still extremely young. And again, if we're going younger, you get yourself kind of more bites at the apples organically at that point in time for somebody who could maybe still extend their game. There's a lot to uncover. The one time he did average over 20 minutes, those stats really look good at over 13 points per game. Solid rebounding numbers there as well. So I really like this pick. I think for the money, for the player of who he is, solid B- here for me. And there's not really much you're going to get more than that. Now, they did hard cap themselves with using that mid-level exception, but we were hard. Listen, so many people bring this up. I know Zach Lowe brought it up and things as well. People that complain about the Bulls hard capping themselves so they couldn't go into the luxury tax, you do realize that
anyway.
We weren't going there anyway. So like they just do it so they could just remove the option so people get shut up. Like we weren't going into the luxury tax anyway. Like
you hard capped yourself. No, we hard capped ourselves before we got anywhere near the luxury tax. That's a
fact. Yeah, we were like, listen, we were hard capped before we're hard capped. Guess what, y'all? So anybody's not surprised. We're hard capped for 2025 too. We're gonna be hard capped for 2026. We're gonna be hard capped for 2027.
We've been hard capped for 10 years, dog. I mean, like, what are we talking about? We've been hard capped since 2001. Yeah, I mean, What are we talking
man.
about right now, dog?
But solid deal there, man. I like the deal overall, bro.
Yeah, and the one thing that I'll say is the part that excites me is, again, when you talk about potential, when you talk about the upside, right? You're pairing him with a guy like Josh Giddey. What is that pick and roll going to look like? How's he going to be able to utilize that? Kobe White, kind of the same thing. How are they, right? Does that elevate Jalen Smith's game, being able to play with guys like that? We saw even last season when he was able to get in the game and be a part of that starting lineup a little bit when Hallie was in there. Having Hallie on the team is going to improve you, right? Like, and so when he was getting those role playing minutes with those guys, you saw the game uptick a lot.
That's a fact. And then the last deal, Pat, DeMar DeRozan, unrestricted free agent. Could have signed anywhere. He ran into what he ran into in that free agent market. Ended up needing a sign and trade to be able to get the money close to the money that he wanted. The Bulls offered him reportedly a 2-year, $80 million deal. He ends up getting a little bit over $25 million per. With the Sacramento Kings, the Bulls get Chris Duarte, 2 second-round picks, and Raekwon Gray, who he immediately waived. So that's a non-factor in that one. How do you grade this deal, Pat?
This one is a little bit tougher because I want to give I'm gonna give it a high grade. This is a B+ deal. I know that you didn't get a lot back, but you were getting nothing back. So, like, I think that you did a good job getting something, and you got what you wanted back. Now, did you want players? Did you want, right? Like, maybe you wanted Kevin Huerter and stuff like that, and because of the Jalen Smith signing, you weren't able to do that. But realistically speaking, DeMar DeRozan was leaving, and you were going to be left with nothing. And now you got more draft capital on your team. You've got a guy in Chris Duarte who we're going to talk about, who maybe there's more upside to Duarte than we initially thought. Maybe there's, maybe a little more game that he's been able to show. Now these guys, when they play for their country, they play very differently. That always doesn't translate to the NBA, but we'll kind of see if given more opportunity, is he somebody who's able to flourish? At a minimum, we know with the Kings, he was able to knock down the 3 ball. He was able to play some solid defense, right? Like, being able to get things like that back in a situation that, and even being able to get the cash considerations back, which I think has been, very under talked about.
It pays for Chris Duarte's deal in a lot of ways, if you want to kind of look at it that way.
And I mean, doing that deal increased your trade exception now to $17.6 million. I believe it increased it to. So if you want to do something, if moves can be made, you still got to move Levine, you got to move Vooch before any of that gets there. But if you can get to the point where you're able to do that, I think that opens things up for you as well, where now you've got that trade exception working in your favor.
Now, of course, the Bulls have had trade exceptions before that they've let expire
and never
used.
Yes,
so,
100%.
I mean, so like there are going to be Bulls fans that are very pessimistic on the chances of that. But here's you guys know I understand where everybody sits at with that, no matter how your feeling is on what the situation is with that. But I do want to give is that the Bulls next season, depending, and if they can move Zach LaVine and not take back salary that is going to be on the cap next season, they will be about $40 million beneath the luxury tax, which means that, keep in mind, that's not true salary cap space, so they can't just go out and use that to sign people, but they then can use that trade exception to absorb some salary with only sending a pick back or something like that. So it does give them a little bit more flexibility future-wise. I doubt that they use it this season. And when you judge a deal, whether you think they're going to use it or not, you do have to judge it based off the assets they got back. And I'm sorry, $17 million trade exception is a really good asset that can be used in the future.
Asset.
Yeah, you just got to see what they're going to use.
Yeah, and it's been very under talked about. Like, so I'm not mad at the deal. I think this was a very good deal for the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Especially considering he's an unrestricted free agent, you could have signed elsewhere. You're able to get some assets back, and we'll see how they use them. So overall, Pat, grades for the offseason. You had to grade the Bulls offseason overall as of right now, July 11th. Because I don't want to date this if anybody listens back, because they could make a move tomorrow that can change it. What grade do you give it, man?
I'm trying to think of what I gave, like the grades that I gave. Well, I guess it would work out to like a B-, right? Like a B- off season. So not a bad off season, not a failure of an off season, but I mean, like I said when I did the episode over on the Breeze, right? Like you're having it's like getting a B in the second semester when you got an F in the first semester. It's going to grade out to a D. So the Bulls got a F for all the moves that they missed.
Yeah.
But now I'm giving them a B minus type of grade, a B type of grade. That's not going to, it doesn't sit there and tell you that you had a great collective, but you had a solid offseason.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. So we'll see what that means overall for the Chicago Bulls, man. But next up, we're going to be talking about, have the Bulls done enough to get Cooper Flagg, and is Chris Duarte going to be damn, what's the word?
You okay? You all right?
Yeah,
you had a little stroke there?
Little stroke there. It's late. Is Chris Duarte going to be an underrated acquisition by the Chicago Bulls? All right, Pat. So Cooper Flagg, question here, real quick, simple question. Have the Bulls done enough to put themselves in the Cooper Flagg sweepstakes?
I think they have. And this is maybe a little bit of a hard take for some people, but 10th is in the Cooper Flagg sweepstakes. We just saw that. 9th is in the Cooper Flagg sweepstakes. 11th is in the Cooper Flagg sweepstakes. That's where the Bulls are right now. The Bulls can do exactly what AK wants to do. The Bulls can go out and win 36 games this year. And you've got a young team that maybe you feel better about because 36 games for this team would be impressive, right? Yeah. And you see in the second half of the season, they bring it together and they're figuring it out, and Giddey looks good and Kobe looks good, and they're winning more games than they're losing, and they finish 10th and they make the play-in and they lose. And you can be in this Cooper Flagg sweepstakes.
Yep. And I think people are so trained to think that you have to be a bottom four team. Like, I hear so many people like, whoa, we're not going to be worse than XYZ. There's going to be 5 teams worse than the Bulls. We didn't do enough. And it's like, well, go back and look. Like, the teams that have gotten the number 1 overall pick the last couple of years haven't been necessarily the teams that have had the best odds to get them. You're just putting yourself to be in the area to get them. And here's what I tell people as well. Even if the Bulls do miss out on Cooper Flagg, this is the type of draft that, hey, if you can be in that bottom 10, keep that lottery pick, you have the chance to walk away with a great asset. Period.
And I think that's the real question, right? Like, because the pick is not just lottery protected, right? It's just top 10.
Top protected. 10. Yeah.
So are you in a position right now with the team that you've built to keep your top 10 pick? Yes. And the only way that you won't be in that position, to me, is if the players that you picked up and the players that you already had on your team prove that they're good enough, and maybe it takes you out of that sweepstakes. And if that's the case, not to say I don't want Cooper Flagg, I would love to have Cooper Flagg, but I can stomach going into the offseason a lot more, knowing that's Kobe true. White's an answer, Josh Giddey's an answer, Patrick Williams started to figure something out, because that's the only way that you're going to be out of the Cooper Flagg sweepstakes in my mind.
That's a fact. That's a fact. I agree with that 100%. The Bulls have put themselves in a position, and they put themselves in a position to optimize potentially keeping their pick. Now, like you said, they haven't made it clear, because if Josh Giddey comes back and he's more like what he was, Kobe White takes another step and averaging 26 points instead of 19. If Patrick Williams comes in and as Zach Lowe, I thought it was so funny in Zach Lowe's podcast. He was like, well, if Patrick Williams can do something, it's like, damn, that's the barrier we're at now. Is just do something. Like, that's crazy.
If he could do something, he just doesn't do anything. I feel that so much, Zach Lowe. You have no idea, bro. There's so many times where I watch Patrick Williams on the court, and I'm just like, bro, like,
do something.
Do something, like run to the board, try and grab a rebound, like something, anything.
That's hilarious, bro. That is funny. When he said that, I was just like, that's all right. Yeah, that's going to be a sound clip. I'm sure people will use that. But yeah, you put yourself in that situation. But anything left on Cooper Flagg, Pat, before we get into the last topic for today?
Hey, he was cooking Team USA.
Hey, bro, Cooper Flagg was cooking.
He is legit.
You know what I like about Cooper Flagg, too? It's not just like so many times with young players, you just talk about offensively. In a lot of ways, his defense is right up there with his offense. And you don't see that from players his age a lot of times, bro. That dude, he's locked in defensively. And I think he takes pride as well as locking down the opposing team and whoever he's guarding. And that's the type of upside that you look at and you just say, hey, if you're able to score at that level and you're not just a solid defender, you take pride in defense,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, Cooper Flagg a dog, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah, bro, like, that's crazy, bro.
And I don't know if y'all saw the video or not, but the hype up song being Finito and him saying the GOAT is Michael Jordan is destiny, bro. Hey, NBA, do
once
your
he
job.
said Finito, bro, it's like, all right, man.
Bro,
Okay, bro.
NBA, do your job.
But
I'm not saying it's rigged, but as I stare into the camera, do your job.
But with that said, a player that a lot of Bulls fans have been bringing up and saying that could be still here for the Bulls has been Chris Duarte, that we did get in that DeMar DeRozan trade, especially with a lot of this tournament over in Greece, the qualifying tournament. Through those 3 games, he averages 19 points per game, 4 rebounds, almost 3 assists, had almost a 20 efficiency rating as well. He was cooking over there, and there was a game where he was going back and forth with Giannis scoring wise. It was Giannis outscored him, make no mistake about it. Also, I don't know if you saw the clip or not. There's a time where Giannis, after a dunk, fell down, and one of his teammates went over to help Giannis up, and he stopped his teammate from helping Giannis up.
Yeah,
little pettiness there.
That.
We like players with a little pettiness here in Chicago. Pat, what chances are you giving it that Chris Duarte ends up an underrated acquisition for the Bulls?
Listen, if Patrick Williams isn't ready to go, Chris Duarte might be a piece that we have to rely upon heavy. And I'm telling you right now, like, if you can show that you're useful on the court, you're gonna play. This is not the Bulls of old. If you can show that there is somewhere that they can put you on the court, knocking down the 3, and Duarte is a solid 3-and-D player. The problem with Chris Duarte has always been health. He's not been a healthy player. I don't even think I have to look. I don't believe he's played above 60 games in his career yet.
No.
So like that's your biggest issue with him. But on the court, he's fine. On the court, you know what you're getting. He's a solid above 38% 3-point shooter, I believe. Yeah, I mean, like, that's what you want. So it's a nice pickup. Apparently, AK really is like, man, we missed a lot of talent in that 21 draft. We got to go try and find all of it.
We have 3/5 of the all rookie second team from that year.
Hey, you know, all the guys that weren't good, let's get all of them on the team and see if they are good. Let's see if we can figure that out. But no, I want to see what he can be, and I think there's an opportunity for him here. And again, same thing as Matas Buzelis. The one thing that's going to get you on the court for this team is defense. There's a void with the Alex Caruso not being out there. So if you can come out and you can be a legitimate 3-and-D player, that's going to get you on the court.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we'll see. We have Io, Chris Duarte, and Josh Giddey, the 2021-22 all rookie second team. All those guys are here. The only ones that we don't have are Bones Highland and Herb Jones. So there you go.
And we'll get them. Don't you worry. We'll get them
in like 10 years. No, but I do think that Chris Duarte. And here's the thing: like, we have had a lot of players that come here, play 1 year with the Chicago Bulls, end up giving something. Now, I don't want, like, they gotta be careful. I don't want to see them give him a John Salmons deal after one season, and then we're like, hey man, what we doing? But yeah, Chris Duarte shows some promise. I'm not going to be too high on him until I see it, but I would be remiss to deny that Chris Duarte doesn't have some upside, especially on that Bulls bench that we can use. And at 6'5", he's definitely getting some of those power forward minutes. So watch out.
Oh man, he's playing center. Come on now. Yeah, I mean, he's got 38 minutes to log at center for sure. The second we trade Vooch.
That is hilarious, man.
Trade Vooch. We're going to be like, the logical option is to put Jalen Smith there. Might I sell you on Chris Duarte?
Oh, man. Any last thoughts, Pat, before we get up out of here, man?
Man, I got nothing, man. Follow us on everything at Locked On Bulls. You can follow me on everything at Pat The Designer. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and showing love.
Absolutely. You guys can follow me at CEO Haize. Want to thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Bulls. We are free and available on every podcasting app and platform of your choice, as well as YouTube. For Pat The Designer, I'm Haize. We out here. Peace, y'all.
Peace.